Huge. I don't think she moved the ball that much forward.
I don't think there's a policy separation that they've created with Biden. Obviously, she gave a kind of personal defense of him.
Now, you might not like the way she answered him, but she answered him as a capable, qualified leader. And I do think she moved the ball forward a little bit. You know, maybe she didn't score a touchdown.
I think the two biggest issues coming out of Biden for her are the economic policies, which she clearly wants to embrace, but also the immigration policies. Dana asked her if she had anything to say about what they did for 3.5 years leading up until the back and forth this year. Completely sidestepped it, did not answer it. She goes back to her time as Attorney General. But again, absolutely nothing, no responsibility, no reflection at all on the day one executive actions or anything else they did for 3.5 years or anything she said in her previous campaign, which was to have the most permissive immigration structure. She's trying to skip a block of time at the debate. Trump cannot allow it.
Don't think that Kamala Harris has anything vested in the air finger quote black or Hispanic experience in so much as it would be identified by anybody that lives in those communities.
You're saying you don't think that she can help black or brown people?
No, I mean, going to Howard don't make you black.
You feel some kinship towards her as a mixed person?
Not personally. I find a lot of her trajectory to not be my brand of woman or leader. We've got 3 major international crises going on and someone applying to be commander-in-chief. As a woman, I want to see you do more than, appeal to giggling and having a girl moment on the stage.
Well, did you see the interview that Kamala Harris had with CNN? All I can say is some people have got it and Kamala don't.
Let's get ready to rumble! You can't handle the truth. I'm surviving at the top of the line.
Hi, it's Pastor Marty. Welcome to a special weekend, Labor Day weekend edition of the Afternoon Drive. Make sure that you are a subscriber to the channel, and once you are, smack the bell, click the word all. That'll give you a notification of my rants, my ravings, and of course, my undeniably flawless reasonings. Please like and share this video. It's the only way that we get the word out that we're here. Thank you so much for watching, being a part of the Afternoon Drive. Hope you guys have a great holiday weekend.
Honor of her and her decision, I brought my big white blankie, and I'm just going to do the show with my own big white blankie today. Is my emotional support. I'm just going to hold on to it. I'm going to hold my blankie, and this is going to get me through the next 27 minutes of interviewing from Dana Bash, and also for potential maybe even 8 years as commander-in-chief and leader of the free world. This is absurd. She did show up with her blankie, her emotional support governor, and he did, if it's possible, even more poorly than she did. All right, we're going to get to all of it. I'm sorry, Dana Bash. I'm disappointed. I actually like Dana Bash. She's tough to dislike. She's a nice person. And honestly, she's a real journalist. She really is. She's not like some of these other hacks. But she fell down on the job last night. There's no question. And my overall take, can I tell you, is that this is what happens when you have a meek person interviewed by a meek journalist. That's what we saw. I don't wish to personally offend her, but that's what I saw. She didn't have the stones to really press Kamala Harris, and I think that's because she knew Kamala Harris couldn't take it.
What did you say?
She didn't have the stones to really press Kamala Harris, and I think that's because she knew Kamala Harris couldn't take it.
Well, Thursday night, Kamala thinks she's a hottie Harris, went on CNN with her emotional security blanket, i.e. Tim Walz, who basically sat there, said nothing, did nothing. I was recently at a men's meeting, and this was great. I was sitting around with a bunch of guys, there must have been over a dozen of us. We're having lunch, and one of the guys brought up about Tim Walz, and he said, he looks just like that person in the Biden administration from the Health and Human Services, like not the Surgeon General, but like the Assistant Surgeon General. You know, the guy that thinks he's a woman and dresses like he's a Navy admiral with a skirt and a ponytail and the glasses. He said, Does that not look like Tim Walz? And it just, I never had made the connection before that. And I was like, Shazam, Batman. Absolutely. So Tim's sitting there saying nothing, and Kamala looked anything but presidential. This thing was a disaster. It was a train wreck. First of all, it was taped, so it wasn't even live. She wasn't even having to be spontaneous because you know it was scripted. You know that they were going to give her these softball, and even when Dana occasionally asked a real question, she never gave a hard-hitting follow-up, just not at all. So, the first question, right out the gate, what are you going to do on day one? And again, instead of outlining any policy, things that she can actually do for the American people, she's trying to channel a rekindling of Barack Obama, you know, with hope and change, and she's talking about hope and joy, and she's speaking in all of these platitudes, things that you would see in greeting cards and on Facebook, but none of it tangible and real and explains what you're actually going to do for the American people.
If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward. In a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism.
Sell crazy someplace else. We're all stocked up here.
Then, of course, she was asked, what about some of the policies that you have changed on? Like, you were against fracking, and now you're for fracking. And Kamala said, well, my values haven't changed. You know, that sounded an awful lot like this.
I actually did vote for the $87 billion. Before, I voted against it.
When you were in Congress, you supported the Green New Deal. And in 2019, you said, quote, there is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. Fracking, as you know, is a pretty big issue, particularly in your must-win state of Pennsylvania.
Sure.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yes, and starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And to your point, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities.
I actually did vote for the $87 billion. Before, I voted against it.
I was against fracking before I was for it. That's what Kamala's saying. What she's saying is, I'm still for the Green New Deal. I still want mandates in place that, you know, by 2035, gasoline cars are illegal and electric cars are in place, even though the technology's not there. We don't have the infrastructure to handle all this, and it will absolutely cripple and destroy our economy because we won't be able to get goods and services to stores on time, and people won't be able to travel like they did travel and get to where they need to be in a timely fashion, and this is going to be a drain on our national power grid. I'm going to mandate it because it's a socialist, communist thing to do, and it's my talking point, but we can do that and frack. Because she knows the reason she has to copycat all of Donald Trump's policies, it is the Trump policies that, number one, work, and number two, it's what the American people want. Donald Trump explains what he's going to do, how he's going to do it. In particular, getting the economy moving again. And every day he's coming out with these policy bullets that people can wrap their head around and go, wow. Like in vitro fertilization, that he said, you know what? It's time insurance companies pay for that. So that young couples don't have to give up their life savings that they were putting aside, for the down payment of a house to be able to get what they need so they can have a child. Insurance companies need to pay for this so that young couples can have children and still have their life savings so that they can have a down payment for a house and start becoming a part of the American dream. I guarantee within 48 hours, Kamala Harris will have the same position. Just like she took Donald Trump's, we're not going to tax tips. Really? Because you and your partner in crime, Joe Obama Biden, you guys hired, what was it, 12,000 more IRS agents so that you could go after, in particular, people who had non-traceable income like tips and gifts and donations. But now all of a sudden, you've had an epiphany and you think that, look, you people that are still dabbling with the idea, well, Kamala could have changed. Kamala could have changed. Really? Really? So you want to do things as happen. Either Kamala is lying or she has actually no core values. That she doesn't ever really believe what it is she's saying. She says what she needs to say at the time because that's what the audience she's speaking to wants to hear. I.e., when she was on the debate stage during the 2020 primary season and telling the progressives in the crowd what they wanted to hear. No fracking. And we need to tax the wealthy, and that means we have to go after these millionaire waitresses and Uber drivers that are holding out on the government with their tips. She is psychotically dangerous. Somebody pointed this out, and I've been rewatching the video. Look at her eyes through that whole interview. They're almost dilated. Now, we know that for 3 years they were juicing Biden up when he had to come out, like when he had to give the State of the Union address or when he had to be in front of a press gaggle for a while and do a press conference. We know that they juiced him up so that at least for 15 minutes to a half an hour, he could be relatively functional and cognitive. We know that. And everybody was talking about what would they juice him up on for the debate. And of course, they didn't juice him up. And then right away, then the lying legacy, corporate, corrupt, mainstream media and Democrats said, you conspiracy theorists talking about juicing up Biden. Look at this man. Look at his cognitive decline. That was done on purpose. He didn't get the magic elixir before the TV cameras went on and he was exposed to the world what all of us already knew. That was done on purpose. So we know that for 3 years they were doping Biden up to make him functional in public. I have a good friend who is a psychologist specializing in child psychology, who sent me a text during the Kamala interview, which was not live, it was pre-taped, but CNN had the little live moniker in the bottom right corner. So, I mean, talk about just lie. Well, it was live. We were airing it right then. That was how they explained why they put the little live moniker there. I mean, the interview lasted almost an hour, but they only aired 18 minutes and they're refusing to release the transcript. Can you say edit much? There were hundreds of Trump supporters, Kamala protesters outside the studios of CNN as Kamala made her way into the studio there in Atlanta. It was great. It was great. It was great. Of course, you can only see it on local Atlanta news. But this friend of mine, this child psychologist, said, look at her eyes. They're dilated. Like a child with ADHD on Ritalin. They had to juice Biden up to bring him out in public. And Kamala, they have to calm down to bring her out in public. Bum-ba-dum-bum. Bum-ba-dum-bum-bum. Oh, let's just go ahead and run the real sound effect. What do you think? Are they giving her something to calm her down? Is she ADD, ADHD? This is why she's so scattered all the time and why she goes from this to this to this. Why she's constantly serving up word salad. Even at rallies that are filled with her adoring sycophants that were paid to be there, that they bust in. They had another rally in Atlanta. And again, they talk about people were lined up early this morning, as early as early. That's what the reporter said. I'm like, they all have Kamalaism. They all speak in word salad. They were lined up early. In fact, the time was early. I didn't know that was a time. But anyway, then there were buses because, well, these were people that were in places where they were parked and had to be shuttled in. Really, we're shuttling them in trailways, buses, and it's just unbelievable. Buses coming in from Atlanta to Savannah, because that's where she held this rally, Savannah, Georgia. It's out on the coast, beautiful, pristine golf courses, and now Kamala Harris. So, you know, they're bussing people all over to come in because organically they can't gather a crowd for her. And even when the media tries to talk about she had a big crowd in there, it's still never as big as Trump's. And they never talk about that Trump always has twice as many people outside watching it on Jumbotrons, wanting to get inside who couldn't get there. Kamala doesn't have that at all. But she served up this unintelligible word salad at this Savannah rally.
He even called for termination of the United States Supreme, the supreme land of our nation, the United States Constitution.
Thank you for playing. Should we or should we not follow the advice of the galactically stupid?
That was totally coherent. She is completely, ready to be the commander-in-chief. What does what she said even mean? Kamala's one of these people, I told you this before, she lives in her own head and she thinks the things that come out of her mouth are brilliant, which is why she repeats them. When we're not bound today by the something of yesterday. Whatever this word salad, some people have memorized what she said. I can't because, I'm convinced it will lower my IQ if I do. I mean, you kind of get what she's trying to say, but she doesn't quite know linguistically how to say it because she's not a communicator. But supposedly we're supposed to believe she was an effective prosecutor in the courtroom. Gee, that would require communication and getting a jury that's sitting there listening to it to buy it. And if we had real journalism in this country, we would find out just how ineffective of a prosecutor she actually was. But that aside, the interview was a train wreck. Even though it's like failing an open book test. And that's what she did. She didn't look presidential at all. Sitting there at the table with her emotional security blanket, Tim Walz. I mean, hate Donald Trump, think that he is not the right guy for the job, but he can answer direct questions. You may not like his answers, but he will give you a direct answer. Kamala Harris wants to speak in platitudes and doesn't want to be nailed down on any details because she doesn't have any core values. And she's already signaling the deep state, look, when I'm in office, whatever policy you want me to enact, that's what I'll do. Whatever wars you want me to start, that's what I'll do. Whatever economic restrictions you want on the American people to choke out the middle class so that we can make them all dependent on the government so that they don't own their own homes, they have to rent, they will eat whatever food we tell them to eat, they will mask up when we tell them to mask up, they will do what they're told. Whatever you want me to do, deep state, I am here to be your hoe. That is Kamala Harris.